Hi everyone, Rhonda with Secret Agent Travel. Just stopping in with a brief introduction to our video today. On Tuesday night, I recorded a live webinar, the 5 frequently most asked questions about travel in a global pandemic, and that is what follows. So be sure and hit the like button and subscribe to be notified of future videos as I upload them, and then stick around to the end so you can take advantage of all of the wonderful information in this video. Thanks, and see you around.
Okay, it does appear, it's showing up here that we are live on Facebook. So hello and good evening. My name is Rhonda. Thank you for stopping in tonight for our very first Tuesday night travel webinar. A couple quick housekeeping bits before we get started. You can't see it right off camera here. My daughter is in her high chair having some cereal. We had a little bit of a miscommunication with my husband, so hopefully she will cooperate. But without any further ado, thank you for joining us tonight. Hello, Facebook. Again, thanks for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation. Okay. It looks like we should be all set. All right, so you will probably be able to see me up here in the corner, but let's get started. So today, the purpose of our conversation, we're going to talk about the 5 frequently asked questions of travel in a global pandemic. So here's my information. I am the owner and agent for Secret Agent Travel. All of my contact information, all my socials are here. This will be available in the files in our Facebook group, and all of the live participants, I will send you a copy of this slide deck after we are finished. So the purpose of our conversation tonight, we're going to talk about these 5 most commonly asked questions about travel in a global pandemic. By the time we are done, you should be able to have the access to the information you need and the resources to decide if it's time for you personally to start traveling again. So what are we going to talk about tonight? The first question we'll talk about is travel even open? Then we're going to talk about what everybody is thinking, and that is it safe to travel? We'll talk about what do you do if you don't have a passport, a U.S. passport book. We'll talk about a little bit about travel insurance and does that cover COVID-19? And the last question, we're going to talk about where can you go this year if you do decide you are in fact ready to travel. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to move this because I know it's going to be in our way real quick. So the first question, is travel even open? Okay, well, the short answer is no. If you're thinking about resorts, if you've ever been to an all-inclusive resort, if you've been on a cruise, and there's hundreds of people everywhere, there's staff everywhere you look, very, very busy. If you think of theme parks, Walt Disney World, Universal Studios, long lines at the amusement park, well, that's just not happening right now, okay? Can you travel? Are there places you can go? Well, absolutely, but travel really just isn't open. So as we can see here, travel isn't. Many countries are just simply not accepting American tourists. This is particularly true in Europe, but even as close as our neighbors up north in Canada, a lot of the world is just not open to American tourists. And those countries that are open sometimes have additional entry requirements. For example, Jamaica and the Dominican Republic require proof of a negative COVID PCR test. And they have different restrictions as far as should it be 3 days, 5 days, 7 days before you travel. Jamaica also requires that you register and become approved to travel. So that's something to consider. Those countries that are open, and Jamaica is accepting American tourists. The Dominican Republic is accepting American tourists, uh, as are some other countries down there in the Caribbean. But even in those countries that are open, Mexico, for example, a lot of the resorts are still closed. And the ones that are open are operating at a 15 to 30% capacity, which means that there could be limited dining and activity choices because there's less staff to run these things. Okay. And we need to point out that the cruising industry is still completely closed. The Cruise Line International Association, or CLIA, the governing body that manages cruise operations, has determined that there should be no new cruise sailings before October 31st of this year, which means that at this point, it's going to be at least November 1st before we see any cruises again. Now, over the past few months, this date has been pushed back, and it is possible that it will get pushed back again. So we have no idea what is going to happen with the cruise industry, but it is absolutely not open, no matter how you look at it. Okay, this is the question that is on everybody's mind when it comes to travel in a global pandemic, and that is it safe to travel? Well, the short answer is maybe. And I know that's kind of a cop out. I know you were hoping for a yes or a no, maybe a little bit of validation for me to say, yes, it's safe to travel, but I'm not going to do that. But I am going to walk you through some of the steps that you can take to decide if travel is safe for you. So again, like I said, it might be safe to travel, but it is very important, first and foremost, that you understand that there are risks involved with travel. This is true anytime. It is even more true now, during our COVID-19 pandemic. You need to realize that you or one of your travel party could get COVID-19. Hopefully you won't, but it is certainly possible. Of course, it's possible you could get it when you go to the grocery store. So again, this is where you need to understand that there are risks, and you need to assess those risks for you personally. And I recommend that we assess those risks across 3 different levels. What am I talking about when I say levels? All right, so level number 1, this is your inner bubble. These are the folks that will be traveling with you, your spouse, your children, your friends, whoever is going on that vacation. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to assess the destination. Where are you planning on going? How big a deal is COVID in that area? You'll want to check the CDC website. You'll want to check the World Health Organization to get some of the most current information to help you make this decision. You'll also want to check with the US State Department. Up until very recently, about a month ago, the US State Department had a level 4 travel advisory, which basically means don't go, for every single country in the world. They recently backed off on that and went back to the original method, which was a country specific. So if you look at, Canada or Mexico, our neighbors, or even looking into Europe, then they would make individual recommendations. Well, the US State Department is going to tell you what the official US government stance is when it comes to should Americans travel there. It's going to give you some sort of indication on if you run into some problems or issues, will you be able to count on the US government for help? It's also really important that you speak with your family physician. Now, there's 2 main questions that I want you to discuss with your physician, and of course, there's more. But first, you want to talk about the health status of you and everyone in your travel party. So, in the event that you or somebody you're traveling with does in fact get COVID-19, are there any underlying health risks that put them at an increased likelihood for severe complications if they should get sick? If any of the people in your inner bubble can't handle it, according to the statistics and best judgment, just stop here, okay? It's not time for your family to travel. If you have determined with the help of your family physician that everybody in your travel party is healthy enough to be able to potentially survive or survive with no long-lasting health complications, then you're going to want to talk to your doctor about access to testing for COVID-19. Depending upon the country that you want to go to, as I mentioned before, some will have testing requirements. And if you decide that you really want to go to Jamaica and you're going to need a PCR or COVID test, you're going to most likely need a doctor to order that test for you. So you'll want to talk to your family physician and you'll want to find out, can they order that test? I mean, they can, but how much is it going to cost? What is the turnaround time? This is very, very important. Before you even consider traveling at this time, you need to know if you can access a test for COVID-19, and most countries are requiring the PCR test. It's a very specific genetic test. Well, PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. I don't expect you to know that. It's just a testing methodology that looks at whether or not you currently have the disease. But it's really important that you know how soon you can get your results back. Okay, well, if it's going to take 10 or 15 days to get your test results and you need to have something 5 days before you travel, that's not going to work. I know a lot of my clients are in the Detroit metro area, and there are a few testing labs out there, that have a quick turnaround time. If you're interested, you can reach out to me individually and I will help point you towards those labs. But you're also going to want to find out if this is something that your insurance covers specifically for travel. Remember, you're not going to have this test because you have symptoms. You want it for travel. And if your insurance won't cover that for travel, you'll want to make sure that you budget that test into the cost of your vacation, because you can't go. Some of these countries won't take you. Okay, once you have assessed your inner bubble, now you need to look at your outer bubble. Okay, and this is a lot more straightforward. You're going to do things like speak with your employer. You're going to make sure that wherever you plan to go, whether it's just down the street or halfway across the world, you want to make sure that your employer is okay with you going there and then coming back to work. If you have an employer that allows you to work from home and this isn't an issue, well, then there's your assessment. Also, when it comes to the outer bubble, you're going to want to look at the general health status. I mean, I don't expect you to ask all of your friends and family if they're healthy, but if you know you have somebody that you spend time with that has underlying disease conditions, it might be prudent to decide to postpone that vacation. And then finally, the third layer is the community. And really what this boils down to is, are you going to have the ability and the financial means to self-quarantine if you should become sick? Okay, I do fully believe that it is the responsibility of every single person to do what they can to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. And so thinking about your ability to self-quarantine, whether it is here or on vacation, and it is possible that you could end up in another country under mandatory quarantine by another foreign government. And so you want to consider the possibility of that and make sure that that's something that you can handle. All right, so this is a screenshot of the U.S. State Department, and I'm going to actually take you to the live link. It is constantly updated, but I want to show you a few things. All right, again, this is what the U.S. government says about these other countries in the world, and as you can see here, this is updated on a daily basis. As things change. And over here on the right-hand side, you can see anything in red, the U.S. government is suggesting do not travel. This yellow, or the yellow with the hash marks, exercise some increased caution, and as you can see, increased caution with increased areas. Then when you get into these orange and the orange hash, they're saying to reconsider it. Again, this is the US government stance. It's not the end all be all. They're not saying you cannot go. They're not saying if you go there, you can't come home. The idea here is if you go and when you come home, we may not be able to have the resources. So for example, if you're going to go to China, which, you know, I'm not even going to scroll over there, all right? You know that China's red, right? And you get into trouble. Maybe you get sick, you run into some legal issues. You cannot count on the US government or the US embassy to help you. And that's where this comes into play. All right, but I want to go and I want to zoom in a little bit here. Oh, wrong direction. And I want to look at the Caribbean. Okay, well, as you would expect, Florida, Puerto Rico, these are US territories, so they are not coded with any color. However, some of the US Virgin Islands still had their borders closed. So you'll want to make sure anytime you plan on going anywhere that you check with where you want to plan on going. So this is a really, really interesting comparison I want to make. All right, so the 3 countries that I generally would recommend for travel are the Dominican Republic over here, Jamaica down here, and then this little province, which is Quintana Roo of Mexico, which is where you have Cancun, you have Riviera Maya, Playa del Carmen, all of those really big touristy beach resorts. Okay, now what are you noticing about Cancun and Riviera Maya in this area? That's right, it's yellow. And so that is exercise increased caution. That's about as optimistic as it gets right now. Even the US government is saying, hey, Mexico, which I think is a really funny hypocrisy. Yeah, no, not going to go there. Not going to go there. But I'll come back to this map in just a minute or a little bit later in the presentation as we continue on and we're talking. So let's move on to the next question, and we'll kind of swing back to that as we talk about where can you go this year. All right, so what if you don't have a passport? Well, the short answer is you need to apply for one now. But before you do, there's something I would like to suggest you do, okay? I'd like you to apply for a second certified copy of your US birth certificate or your US citizenship naturalization document. Whatever your document is that says, I am a US citizen, get another official copy, okay? There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, that you'll have it, okay? When you apply for a passport, you have to send in your original documents. And so you're not gonna have it in your possession while it's gone. So if you have a second certified copy of your birth certificate, you have the ability to prove your citizenship while your documents are out and while you're waiting for your passport. Also, a birth certificate can be used for some international travel. Specifically, I am thinking of cruising. In the event that the cruise industry does open on November 1st, and that is what's going to work for you, you're going to be able to maybe hop on a cruise ship or feel comfortable that that's the vacation for you. As long as you depart from and return to the same US port city, you can use your birth certificate for cruising. Another thing to do while you are waiting for your passport is consider applying for an enhanced driver's license. Similar to a passport card, an enhanced driver's license shows your identity and your citizenship. Now, this is different than the Real ID. And the Real ID has got that little star up in the corner of your driver's license, the little gold star. This is different. This actually proves your citizenship. And for those of you in Michigan and Ohio who are really close to the Canadian border, you can use an enhanced driver's license for land border crossings and seaport crossings. Okay, now I need to point out that the land border between the United States and Canada and the United States and Mexico are currently closed. Okay, you can get into Mexico as a United States citizen and as a tourist by airplane, but I don't believe, unless it's changed recently, that you can get in at a land border crossing. But an enhanced driver's license is still a good thing to have. All right, so there is a process involved in applying for your passport. So you're going to want to follow the steps outlined here. Sorry, as you can tell, my daughter's demanding a cookie. This page here, for those of you, and like I said, I'll put this up in the Facebook files. This page tells you everything you know about how to apply for a U.S. passport, what you're going to do. I want to just point out, however, that they are not currently expediting passports. Okay, so that means if you do not have one, you are going to want to apply as soon as possible, even if you don't have a vacation planned. Okay, know that when you fill out this application, it's a little bit more expensive, but I do recommend that you get both the passport book and the passport card. The book is necessary for any international air travel, but the passport card, just like the enhanced driver's license, can be used for land and sea border crossings. And it's just easier, I think, if you're going to be in a vacation situation where you don't have to take your whole passport book, if you can just take the card. So consider that. And as I said, apply now. If you don't have a passport and you think you want to go on a vacation anytime in the next 10 years, just apply now. It is going to take several months above and beyond the normal 6 to 8 weeks processing time for a U.S. passport. So if you need any help, you can reach out to me and I will point you in the direction of resources to help you get this done. Okay, question number 4, and that is, does travel insurance cover COVID-19? Okay, the short answer is possibly, but I'm also going to say possibly not. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to be sure and carefully review your policy documents. Okay, you're going to want to check specifically for exclusions and limitations. You're going to want to know how long you have to look at that policy and cancel it. Every single travel insurance policy out there gives you a period of time, whether it's 24 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours, 14 days. Again, review your policy documents and check. And if you're purchasing your travel insurance through me, I will help you so that you know when that look period is. But you need to know how long you have to look it over, and make sure that you read every single line of your policy document. If you have any questions at all, you're going to want to talk to an insurance agent, or you can reach out to me and I will help find somebody that can answer your questions if I can't do it myself. Okay? You're going to want to make sure you understand common industry terms. Things that I'm thinking of here are things like covered reason. So when you look at your policy documents, they're going to say that your trip is covered if you cancel for a covered reason. You're going to want to know what that is. Another important term is a foreseeable event. Okay. This is where COVID-19 comes in. Back in the first part of this year, February, March, when we first, we first started hearing about COVID at the end of last year, but in February, March, when things really got strong and our government said, oh, hey, this virus is a problem, there is an outbreak, and then it was actually labeled as a global pandemic. Well, because of that, and I'll show you here in just a moment, COVID-19 is now what's considered a foreseeable event. And sometimes these insurance policies will exclude a foreseeable event, which means that even if, let's say you were going to travel last April, okay, maybe in this case, if you bought your vacation back then, and nobody could foresee that Corona was going to come around, that might have been covered. But now it might not be. So you're going to want to check those policy documents very carefully. Again, like I said, it is considered foreseeable. Now, there are insurance policies available that are known as cancel for any reason. And it's just like it sounds, okay? It doesn't matter what your reason for canceling is. You could have stubbed your toe and just decided that you didn't want to go spend a week on the beach with an ugly toe, okay? I mean, I don't know if I would recommend you cancel your vacation for that, but cancel for any reason is just that. So if you are truly concerned about the COVID-19 issues, make sure you look into that. Now, once you get on vacation, if you get sick, you want to make sure, are you covered or are you not covered? So know this, read your policy documents, talk to me, talk to your insurance agent, and we will help you navigate this. Okay, so I want to really quick take a moment and I want to show you an example of an insurance policy, okay? So here we have, this is right here. I lost my page. So here we go. I apologize for this. There we go. All right, so this CSA travel protection. All right, so what I did was I went to their website and I put in as if I was requesting a quote. So this is based on 4 travelers. That's 2 adults and 2 children. It assumes that you are a resident of the state of Michigan, that you're going to Cancun, Mexico, and that the total cost of your vacation before insurance is $7,500. So as you can see, and this includes all 4 travelers, the cost of the policy ranges from $303 up to about $440.50. And I'm not going to go through everything, but I want to point out that if you cancel, again here, for a covered reason, you will get 100% of your trip cost back. If your trip is interrupted, again, for a covered reason, you will get anywhere from 125% of the insured value all the way up to 175%. If your trip is delayed for any reason, you can get up to $1,000 per person. If your bags are lost, okay, so most people don't realize that travel insurance will help you if your luggage gets lost. It will help you buy new clothes. It will help you replace your shampoo, your deodorant, your sunscreen, your toothbrush. If you're traveling with skis because you're going to Aspen for the week, travel insurance is going to cover that on the preferred or the premium plans. If your bags are, like I said, are delayed, if your sporting equipment is delayed, if you miss your connection, you're covered. And then there's some medical and dental coverage. And again, here, it's important to point out that in most cases, pre-existing conditions are excluded. In other words, if you know you have cancer and you're going on vacation and you go into remission, that might not be covered. However, if something new happens, it will. Emergency transportation, accident, if there's an accidental death and dismemberment. Again, when we talk about pre-existing medical conditions, these 2 plans do exclude it, but the premium plan does include that. So you'd want to make sure, if you knew you had something that could potentially lead you to have to cancel your trip, you would want this premium, like a pre-existing condition. Okay, so here's a couple other things that a lot of times people don't realize are covered under travel insurance. Okay, if you need some concierge services, like help making your reservations, if you want to schedule some excursions that I haven't helped you with, and hopefully I will have taken care of that, but you have access to these concierge services. if your identity is stolen, okay, if somebody scans your credit card or something like that, you do have coverage for a full 180 days from your departure date, okay? This is a pretty big deal. Now, this is something that can be added on to the standard or preferred plan, but I want to point out is included in the premium plan, and that is if you've ever rented a car and you've paid out the nose for the insurance from the rental car company, this travel insurance plan will cover that. You don't have to pay extra for your rental car insurance. So again, to sum this up, make sure you spend time reviewing your plan documents. I still recommend travel insurance more now than ever, but do know that it is not the end all be all. It may not cover everything, okay? All right, where can I go this year? Short answer, and I may have kind of led into this a little bit. The short answer is Mexico. If you are looking for a big international vacation, I recommend you stay domestic or you go somewhere in Mexico, probably in Quintana Roo. Yeah, you starting to get a little frustrated. Somebody's starting to get close to the end of her rope. So I don't want to rush through this, but let's speed it up. All right. So I mentioned domestic vacations. Now I want to point out that there are parts of this country that have more cases of COVID than others. So for example, we looked at the State Department website. Let's look at what the CDC map has to say. All right, so this here, and you can see down here from the legend, that the darker orange, the more total cases you have. So states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, Illinois, they have the most cases, okay? But they also have the most people. So you want to make sure that you're not only looking at the total cases, but here in the United States, you're looking at the cases per 1,000. And here's something really interesting I want to point out. All right, when you look at the state of Iowa here, we're in this middle orange color, this third orange color. But when you look at cases per 100,000, we jump up a category, okay? The population matters. So if you are, let's see, if we're comparing on cases per 100,000, if you live in Ohio, you might not want to go to Florida, okay? But if you live in Florida and you're reasonably certain that you are healthy and you're not going to further spread the virus, you might love to go to Washington State, okay? So keep in mind not only where you're going, but where you've been. Where do you live? You're going to want to compare that as well. Okay. Again, like I mentioned, pay close attention to that. Now, when it comes to international vacations, you definitely have some options. You will want to check how prevalent COVID-19 is at your destination. So here's a resource that I pulled up. Let's look at Mexico quickly. All right. So these are, let me move myself out of the way so you can see this. This is Statista. This is just Mexico coronavirus cases. And here it talks about the number of confirmed cases as of about a month ago. So this is actually somewhat outdated. You would want to get something a little bit more current than this. But if we scroll down, you see we actually have to expand this to even get to Quintana Roo, which is where Cancun is. All right, so as of August 17th, there were about 9,327 confirmed cases in Quintana Roo. That's where Cancun is. That's where Riviera Maya is, where Playa del Carmen. This is the tourist zone of Mexico. 937,000 total cases. Well, let's flip back and let's look a little bit at the United States. Okay, we're dealing with 9,300, right? There's been 70,000 confirmed cases in the state of Iowa. Even over here in Maine, where we have one of our lowest case counts, 4,713. Okay, so this is half of that Providence in Mexico, but it's It's the best part of the country. Okay, so if it were me, and I currently live in Iowa and I'm about to move to Michigan, it looks like the data says there are fewer people in Cancun with the virus. So that would be an indicator that I might want to go. But if I was from Maine and there were twice as many confirmed cases where I was going, I might not want to go there. The other thing you're going to want to consider if you're thinking about going on a vacation this year is check with the destination country and see if they have any entrance requirements. As I mentioned, Jamaica and the Dominican Republic and many other countries in the Caribbean have testing requirements. They require that when you arrive, you have proof of a negative test within so many days of travel, and it could be as little as 3 or as many as 10. Jamaica also requires that you be authorized, that you seek permission, and that you be it's basically a travel authorization. You have to reach out to the ministry, you have to apply. Think of it kind of like a travel visa. It's not actually a travel visa, but in other parts of the world where you need authorization to travel, that's what's going on in Jamaica right now. However, Mexico currently, or at least as of this morning when I was re-verifying, has no restrictions for Americans when it comes to travel by air. There are still some restrictions in place when it comes to land border crossings and seaport entries, but you can get into Mexico by air. So remember this graphic, right? All right, we talked about our inner bubble, our outer bubble, and our community responsibility. If any of those arrows are red or there are red flags, somebody's not healthy, maybe your employer doesn't want you to go, or you don't have the means to quarantine if you should get sick, it might be best to wait a while yet. Now, if all those are green and it's go, and you don't have a passport, then you might want to consider local getaways. It is certainly possible to go to the amusement parks down in Florida. Walt Disney World is open, Universal Studios are open, and they're operating at lower capacities, which certainly does not mean that it is safe, but it is safer. And both of these companies have excellent protocols in place to help keep their staff and guests safe. It is definitely something to consider. However, if you do have a passport and all of your flags are green, I urge you to consider Mexico. Right now, Mexico kind of has this magical little sweet spot where the U.S. State Department says, okay, it's probably okay to go there. The data, the statistics of incidence and prevalence say, well, quite frankly, you are probably less likely to contract COVID-19 in Quintana Roo, Mexico, than you are in certain parts of this country. And Mexico has no additional regulations for entry. So between the U.S. State Department saying, well, maybe think about it, but okay, and the U.S. and then the Mexicans saying, hey, we'd love to have you, and then it probably is safer than the United States, it's definitely worth considering. So if you are looking for a family-friendly resort in Mexico, there are 3 that I would recommend at this time. The first one is the Azul Beach Club in Cancun. The second one is the Hyatt Ziva, and that one's also in Cancun. And then we have Generations in Riviera Maya. Then if you are looking for something for just the adults, we have the Royal by Hilton, and that's in Playa del Carmen. We have the Hyatt Zilara, which is actually right next door to the Ziva. So if you're traveling with just adults, you have access to both of those resorts. Same thing applies. If you want to go to the Ziva, there is an adults only section, and you still have access to Zilara. Also on the adults only side, now this is beautiful. You've probably seen those pictures of those beautiful, beautiful overwater bungalows in Bali, right? Okay, everybody's seen them. They've been floating around the internet for years. Palafitos overwater bungalows have a very similar feel. Okay, it's off the coast of Mexico. It is not. It's not Bali. The water is still crystal blue. Those bungalows are over the water. So it's definitely something to consider, especially if you are looking for a romantic getaway or a honeymoon or a second honeymoon. Now, the reason that I recommend these particular properties is they are part of the Charisma brand and the Playa brand. And both of these two resort properties have instituted policies to help keep their guests and staff safe. With Charisma, it's their Peace of Mind initiative, and for Playa, it's the Safe Stay initiative. We'll talk more about those in coming weeks on our Tuesday night travel webinars. Now, if you are looking for a very special adults only getaway, you might want to look at Hidden Beach in Playa del Carmen. This is a 5-star adults only au naturel resort. So unlike some of the resorts that you might have heard of in the Caribbean that are kind of like, you know, get naked and party, this isn't like this. This is a classy clothing optional resort. Okay, so if you are interested in traveling now, I would love to talk to you. If you're not ready to travel, I would still love to talk to you about your travel style, your travel preference, and it just might not be time for you to book. But I want you to know how it's going to go. So you can reach out to me and you can schedule a time. I do offer appointments in the early mornings, the evenings, or even in the weekends. I'll send you a link to a survey. Now, this is optional. It has about 15 questions or so. And what that does is it just kind of allows me to pre-plan for our meeting. It gives me a little bit more information. It helps me guide our conversation. I'm going to ask you about your vacation history and your preferences. So we'll talk about where have you been? What did you like about those vacations? Was there anything you didn't like about those vacations? If you had a problem, how was it taken care of? Was it solved to your satisfaction? And then I'm going to make sure that you have all of the time you need to ask your questions. Okay. If you have any, we'll get those answered. At the end, we will schedule a follow-up call. At that time, I will give you 1 to 3 vacation options, and you can book at that time, or you can take a little bit of time to decide. I do want to assure you that any vacation I present to you will be in line with your preferences, and it will be within any budgetary limitations that you give me. So I'm not gonna blow smoke up your behind, okay? If you tell me that you can only afford $6,000 or $8,000 or $4,000, I'm not going to come back and suggest a vacation to you that's 150% of what you told me you could afford. I am going to show you something that fits in what you told me you want to pay. I might show you a couple options, but I'm not going to try and upsell you. That's not what I'm about. That's not what you want. That's not what I want. Okay, so that is really the end of the content portion of our webinar. I do want to let you know that I have a couple more scheduled next week on September 15th and also on Saturday the 19th. We're going to talk about the Charisma Peace of Mind. So that's what I mentioned a few slides back. This is the initiative that the Charisma brand has taken to help keep guests and staff safe. And then the following week on the 22nd, we will talk about the Playa Safe Stay program and what they are doing. I am super excited. On September 15th with Charisma, I do have a regional sales manager directly from Charisma joining us for that presentation. So you'll be able to hear directly from the source what they are trying to do to help keep you safe. All right. Well, since there wasn't anybody in the live meeting, I am going to just go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much to everyone who took time to stop in for their evening. I really do appreciate the evening. Thank you. Goodbye and be well.